Hey, this is Alan Brochstein, and after the inaugural week last week, I'm following up pretty much the same thing. The goal of this video is to bring a little bit of a context to the newsletter that we've been publishing at New Cannabis Ventures for 6 years now. Again, I'm Alan Brochstein. I run 420 Investor, which is a subscription service to help people navigate what can be sometimes some pretty rough waters known as the cannabis sector, the publicly traded stocks there. And of course, I run New Cannabis Ventures as well. And I got to tell you, last week was a great week to begin this. We had a lot of things to talk about. This was actually the slowest week in 6 years at New Cannabis Ventures. For those of you who are familiar with what we do there, we have some original content, but most of what we publish is curated press releases. So last week, you heard me talk about those as I went through them. Things like what was going on in M&A, capital raises, quarterly financials, things like that. We ran 0 curated press releases this week, which was maybe a story in and of itself. So I want to thank everybody for the feedback that I got on this last week. A lot of good feedback and a few good ideas. This will be a work in process, so this is only the second version, and it's going to be pretty similar to last week, but I want to spend just a little bit more time before we get into the discussion of the weekly newsletter and just answer a question, or at least begin to answer a question. Last week I talked about the move in the market and what it was about and gave a little context to that. Well, this week was an absolutely horrible week. No matter how you look at it. And I think a lot of people are, obviously past the point of no return. They came into the market maybe in last November and overstayed, or maybe they came in right at the top in February. And it's been a very challenging market. I've been following the cannabis sector for 8 years now. And most of the time when we have this type of market move, there's something bad going on. And I don't think that's really the case here. I think I talked about it last week, that one of the things that's concerning people is some of the slowdown in reported cannabis sales, and especially out west in Colorado and Oregon, where cannabis sales actually fell year over year. But I talked about this last week, and I think that's really just the tough comparisons of last summer when the pandemic was at its peak in terms of people panicking and in lockdown, nothing to spend their money on except alcohol and cannabis emerged as a big winner. So I'm not going to go over that this week. But there are a few other things going on, and this is the type of thing I talk about at 420 Investor. I do 10 videos a week. One in the morning after trading has begun, about an hour into the day, and one after the close. And on Friday, I don't do it after the close. I do it on Saturday, and that's the day I'm recording this, actually. And today's video is like 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's one of my longer ones. The longest, believe it or not, was probably back in February when this was maybe coincidental, maybe not. It was about 4 hours and 20 minutes. But in any event, I spent a lot of time today talking about kind of what some of these factors are and why it's not turning around quite yet. I know some people think we're in a bear market. I continue to view this as a consolidation, but I think there's been a couple of disappointments beyond the biggest disappointment. The biggest disappointment was really the lack of a quick federal legalization, which I think people ought to be careful of what they wish for. That is actually something that could be very detrimental to the cannabis industry. The status quo is a great system for the current operators, and I've explained that one before. So I think that when we saw it wasn't even an introduction of the bill; it was a preview, and when we saw that, the cannabis stocks sold off hard. And I think a lot of people were saying, well, just wait till we get the earnings reports. They're going to be strong and we'll find buyers. No, they were strong, but nobody bought. And then, well, wait till after Labor Day we'll find buyers. No. So unfortunately, this is a time where people are not buying cannabis stocks, and more people want to sell than buy. Are they right? I don't think so, but right now, that's what's going on. So I talked about a lot of other factors, and one of the things that I spent a great deal of time talking about today was tax loss selling. It's kind of the lemonade of the lemons that are being thrown at us right now. And you ought to be careful. If you've been investing in this space and you made a lot of money early in the year and you booked gains, you're going to have a huge tax bill in April next year. And today is the day you ought to start thinking about that. Don't wait till December 30th or December 31st. Again, these are some of the things I talk about at 420 Investor. So this week, the market, as I said, was a complete disaster. 4 straight down days, new lows for the year. We were up more than 100% in February at the peak, which was not sustainable. I remember starting this year, every weekend video, so every Saturday morning, I would say we're up this much. If you annualize it, it would be way up here, and it's not going to keep up at this pace. And as we got closer to the peak, I really sounded the alarm. It's been tough trying to figure out when it's going to end, and I have not really had a crystal ball that's helped me on that one. But I knew that things weren't sustainable when they were up more than 100%. But now the market, the new Cannabis Ventures Global Stock Index, is only up 6.5% year to date. And that's an average. You can look at certain stocks like Canopy Growth, down almost 40%. Some stocks are up a lot as well. So it's been a really interesting year. I run some model portfolios at 420 Investor, and 2 of them are longer term focused and measured against that same index. Again, the index is up 6.5%. My 2 model portfolios are up something like 19% and 29%. I don't remember the exact numbers, but close to that anyway. So as good as it feels to be beating my benchmark, which is my job, that's what I'm trying to do, I sure am sad about all those gains that we're giving up. But I don't go to cash in those model portfolios. I don't market time. So turning to the newsletter this week, and I will put a link in the summary notes here. You can sign up to be on an email list and get that delivered to your inbox every Sunday morning. We also publish it to the website, so you can just log on to New Cannabis Ventures and find that. So again, I'll put those links in the summary. But like I said, this week there was literally nothing worth publishing among the press releases. It was a week of fluff, like sad. It was a 4-day week, of course, but 6 years I've never seen this before. So we did publish 3 pieces, 2 interviews, and then I do, well, after earnings, during earnings season, I'll do 2 a month, but typically it's 1 a month, where I review all the recently reported financial reports and look at our rankings. What was interesting about this week, I have a space constraint. Literally, I don't know the exact number, but for me to fit the list onto a screenshot, it can only be so long. So this is partially why we keep raising the bar. And in this article, I talked about how when we started this, literally 2 years and 3 months ago, that's all. All you had to do was have $2.5 million of revenue to qualify. And now we raised it a month ago from 12.5 to 15. So the good news is we're back to 12.5. We're going down, but we've broken the list up into a senior list and a junior list for both US and Canadian dollars. So that was one of the pieces we published, and I continue to be impressed with how rapidly the industry is scaling up. And you know, that list is getting thinned out a little bit because of M&A. So that's an interesting thing as well. But I think there's like 60 names now that are 12.5 million, which is 50 million a year annualized of revenue. And then the 2 interviews, one was Planet 13. I know I talked about Planet 13 last week because they had announced the Florida license acquisition. That will go through when True Leaf and Harvest close their deal. but I say when. And then, so that interview was great. I love those guys. Our industry, if you look at who leads these companies, it tends to be people with financial or legal backgrounds. And there's nothing wrong with that. But so few of these companies are run by true operators the way Planet 13 is. So I will confess, Planet 13 was not one of my favorite companies a few years ago. I called them a one-trick pony. They're not that anymore. And in this interview, they discussed their new California operation as well as pending operations in both Chicago and in Florida. So that was one interview. And then the other interview was with the Indiva CEO. And Indiva is a client of New Cannabis Ventures, just for full disclosure. And they've done a really great job, in my view, of bringing in some brands from the United States. Bang, which is a troubled company, but a good brand, and Wana, which is a great brand, leading brand in all of Colorado, but it's in a lot of other markets as well. And so that's really was most of what was discussed in that interview, the brands that they're working with and how their financial situations improved. But anyway, so those were the articles that we ran. And then, each week I share just a little bit of insight in the newsletter. Pick one topic and discuss it. And speaking of Wana brands and brands, this week the newsletter's introductory essay is about brands, and I took a look at something that BDSA did. BDSA is one of the leading cannabis POS data analytics companies, and they said that Cresco is the leading brand in the whole country, and that's just the markets that they cover, 9 states. So different people might say different things, and then they went state by state as well. But anyway, I'm not going to summarize that whole article, but the main point that I would make is I think brands are finally beginning to emerge in the cannabis space. I shared some examples. For one was how Lowell licensed out their pre-rolls to Ascend for Illinois and for Massachusetts. That's one example, and they get 15% of the wholesale price. Curaleaf bought Select last year, and they have expanded that brand, which was originally an Oregon brand that was going into California as well, and now they have it in multiple states, and they've moved beyond their core vape product into other categories. So branding is definitely a big thing. California brands probably have a really good chance of succeeding, or I would just say Western brands, not just California. These are very mature markets where some of these brands have been around for quite some time. Just recently, New Cannabis Ventures has interviewed, coincidentally, 4 women that run, I think, all exceptional brands. They're all private companies. One's from Oregon, that was the most recent one, Grown, and then one was from Colorado, Wana, and 2 were from California. One of my favorite brands personally is Kiva. I just love their products. They're not a client, this isn't a paid advertisement, but I have really enjoyed a variety of Kiva products when I'm in California. So that was one, and then, oh boy, now I'm blanking out on the 4th one, but you know what, I'm thinking, because it wasn't a woman, it was Lowell Farms. Mark is not a woman. So I do feel like there were 4 women, but I might be missing one. So, it was a woman from Pure Beauty, and Pure Beauty is a California brand, and I didn't mention this. What I mentioned was cookies. That's probably the leading brand in the United States. I don't care what BDSA says. Maybe not the leading by dollars, which is what they're measuring, or units, but top of mind, cookies. And I talked about how cookies has expanded into different states through licensing. They picked not coincidentally probably, they picked Gage in Michigan, which is being acquired by TerraSend, and they picked TerraSend for New Jersey. Kind of interesting the way that worked out. But speaking of Gage, they are the partner for this Pure Beauty. Anyway, that was the piece. I've gone over my 15 minutes. Again, thank you for tuning in. And if you have any comments for me about how I can make this more valuable to you, let me know. Take care.